Hey everybody, I'm Benjamin, aka The Terrible Australian of SuperMarcy.com, and this is my video review of The Emperor's New Clothes, which is a documentary directed by Michael Winterbottom. So let's get right into it. I have to say, I actually quite enjoy a lot of Michael Winterbottom's film. He's definitely a very interesting and unique filmmaker who kind of doesn't really stick to the one type of film. Like, if you actually go over his entire filmography, it's like each film is completely different from the last, and he definitely has a very interesting sort of like range when it comes to the films. You got a bit of sci-fi, drama, other documentaries, or foreign films, even porn. So he's definitely sort of varied in his approach when it comes to filmmaking, and for most part, I would say I quite like a lot of his films, and except for maybe probably a small fraction of them, I think they're all pretty good, and even great as well. So I was very interested to check out this film because this is, his latest film, which of course is a documentary, and this film was actually he made with comedian Russell Brand. So I was a bit skeptical at first because Russell Brand's kind of like a mixed bag of a celebrity. Like, he can be really funny at times, and when given the right role, he can be a really good actor. But I kind of was thinking, like, because more in the past few years, he's sort of taken up a lot of sort of like become a bit of an activist on certain topics, and I must admit, I was a bit skeptical about this film. Like, would it be a vanity project, or would he just be basically, it's part of my French, be talking out of his ass throughout this whole film, especially with a subject like this film has. So I was skeptical, but at the same time I was open-minded about it because I figured, maybe, there might be something interesting here. So overall, I think for the film itself, I actually think it's a pretty solid documentary. Not a great documentary by any means, but a pretty solid one. But I have to admit, though, sort of the topic about, since this documentary sort of goes into sort of like the disparity between like the rich and the poor, and why is it that some people are getting richer, like, and why the normal people are just getting poorer when it never used to be like that. And it's pretty much what's interesting to me. This film doesn't really sort of cover things that sort of does go over some sort of interesting topics that I'm already aware of. I know all about the stuff about sort of, the old saying, the rich are getting in today's age, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. Like, this film sort of goes a lot. That's sort of the main sort of subject of this film, and a lot of the stuff that it covers I've already kind of know about, so it didn't really sort of bring anything particularly new. But Russell Brand at the start of the documentary, he pretty much says, like, pretty much in the same line of what I just said. It's like, we're not going to tell you, he pretty much says, and I'm paraphrasing, we're not going to tell you anything that you haven't already been told before. But basically, with the help of Michael Winterbottom, they wanted to still go into, explore more of this subject. And for the most part, I'd say it's a really interesting film in that regard. I'm not going to say it's entirely successful, but I think there's a lot of interesting sort of areas that it covers. Some of which I wasn't aware with, so that, which made it quite interesting. But one of the things what made this film really watchable for me was, of course, Russell Brand. And you could tell, like, during this film, that he is incredibly passionate about this topic. And I was assuming, like, he's just putting his name out there and all that, but this is something that you can see while watching him, and when he goes into sort of like his monologues about why all this is happening and the state of the world is right now, particularly in the UK. You can tell there's a lot of passion in what he's saying, and this is something that he's really quite upset about. And I know, and even sort of like, I know you're probably thinking, oh, why is he sort of so obsessed about rich people getting richer when himself he's a famous celebrity and he's already rich. He does make mention to that, so he knows that it's kind of what's the word? Well, you know what I mean anyway. Like, it's kind of does seem contradictory of what he's trying to say, and he admits that. And but he at the same time, he does just because he wants the help. Sort of like feels that it's still unfair anyway. And of course, during the course of the film, he meets with regular everyday people who are sort of going through these struggles. Some of which are going out working nearly 18-hour days for so little money, and sometimes even having to work 2 jobs. Like there was one guy in the documentary who pretty much works pretty much nearly all night as a cleaner at one place, and then as soon as he finishes there, about say 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, he has to go to his next job to clean a pub. And I thought that the film does a really good job at sort of establishing the sort of that human connection with these people, and you can understand why they're sort of frustrated and why they're all upset by this. And in that regard, I think when it comes to stuff like that, the film does work. But at other times, though, I do feel like Brand is sort of going for sort of a very Michael Moore approach when it comes to the film, particularly with sort of like some of his tactics to get interviews and that. Like there's one scene where one sort of rich businessman, he goes to his house and he, of course, tries to get in, first, just, like talking in the intercom, asking if he can come in, if the person's there, and of course, like after a while, they don't let him in. So of course, he climbs over the fence to put up a sign and all that, and of course, he goes in another couple of banks and tries to get to see the head of those banks, and of course, security won't let him. So it goes for sort of like Michael Moore type of sort of tactics and all that, and I personally think that it didn't quite work for this film, and it felt like he was kind of trying a bit too hard. But overall, though, like for what it is, I think it's just like the Emperor's New Clothes. Sorry, The Emperor's New Clothes. And for those wondering why is the film called that, don't worry, it's pretty much explained within the first couple of minutes. So why, and it's sort of symbolic of everything that's happening in the film. So, but overall, I think it's a solid documentary. Not a great one by any means, but like I said, it doesn't really cover anything that we didn't already know before, but at the same time, it's still interesting nonetheless. And Russell Brand does make a really, really pretty engaging sort of host for this doco. So overall, if I had to give this film a rating, I'd give it a solid 3. And if you enjoy docos, I'd say it's worth a watch. So yep, that's the end of my video review of The Emperor's New Clothes. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys all later. See you, everyone.